I'd like to take a moment to let you all know about a new non-profit organization started by my brother Craig. It's called Treats and Truth. They fill oversized brown lunch bags with snack items, chips, crackers, popcorn, cookies, etc. Also, a bottle of water, toothbrush, toothpaste, sanitary wipes, and most importantly, a small gospel-tract book of John. No cigar? I'll have to talk to him about that. The bags are then hand-delivered to the homeless and people in need in and around the Los Angeles area. Let's help get this ministry off the ground. They're a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, so any and all donations are tax-deductible and greatly appreciated. Visit their website at treatsandtruth.org. Check out the show notes for the link. Also, please follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you. Welcome to episode 201 of the Burning Bush podcast, where we share the message of the Bible while enjoying a good cigar. Hope you're doing well, and I'm glad you've joined me. In this episode, we're reading the New Testament book of Acts, chapter 14, with commentary from the notes in the Charles Spurgeon Study Bible, and I'm smoking the Ave Maria Dark Night in the Robusto 5.2 by 54 Vitola. Let's go to cigarsinternational.com and see what they have to say. Dark Night Rising. A.J. Fernandez is the man that needs no introduction, especially with how well-loved the Ave Maria blends are to the CI Nation. So don't look at me like I'm crazy when I say this may be the best of the bunch. Look, I'm no joker, man. I take this very seriously. This blend is damn tasty, my friends. This potent Nicaraguan puro could be the strongest Ave blend yet. Loaded with a hefty dose of well-aged, flavorful, long-filler tobaccos, Dark Night is cloaked inside a dark Nicaraguan Maduro wrapper. Upon lighting, you get notes of spice and leather up front that finishes with a smooth, rich, dark chocolate note. As potent as it is, this beauty still finishes smooth and balanced. But what else would you expect from AJ? And the profile is medium to full. Wrapper is Maduro, and binders and fillers are both Nicaraguan. And it comes in the one Vitola, the Robusto 5.2 by 54. That is the Ave Maria Dark Night. So let's get into our reading of Acts chapter 14. I am reading from the English Standard Version, the ESV, and verse 1. Now at Iconium they entered together into the Jewish synagogue and spoke in such a way that a great number of both Jews and Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brothers. So they remained for a long time, speaking boldly for the Lord, who bore witness to the word of his grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews, and some with the apostles. When an attempt was made by both Gentiles and Jews, with their rulers, to mistreat them and to stone them, they learned of it and fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and to the surrounding country, and there they continued to preach the gospel. Now at Lystra there was a man sitting who could not use his feet. He was crippled from birth and had never walked. He listened to Paul speaking, and Paul looked intently at him, and seeing that he had faith to be made well, said in a loud voice, "Stand upright on your feet." And he sprang up and began walking. And when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in Lycaonian, The gods have come down to us in the likeness of men. And Spurgeon comments on verse 11, the gods have come down to us in human form. The name of Christ was totally unknown in the town of Lystra. At the gates of their city was a great temple dedicated to Zeus, or Jupiter. Paul and Barnabas entered the town and began to talk about Jesus, the Son of God, who had come down from heaven, had suffered and died, and had again ascended up on high. Among the crowd, a lame man listened with marked attention. Paul, in the middle of a sermon, either by the exercise of judgment or by the promptings of revelation, concluded that this man had faith to be healed. Paul cried, "Stand up on your feet!" And the lame man leaped and praised God. The population was all amazed, and knowing a tradition that Zeus and Hermes, or Mercury, had once appeared in that town, they concluded that they must have come again. They identified Barnabas, who was probably the elder and the nobler-looking man, as Zeus, and that Paul must be Hermes, his messenger, the god of eloquence. They rushed to the temple and told the priests that the gods had come down. The priests brought forth the sacred bulls and the wreaths and were about to offer sacrifice before Paul and Barnabas. Such homage these men of God indignantly refused. They tore their clothes and ordered them to do no such thing. The next day Paul found himself exposed to peril. He was stoned, dragged through the streets as dead, and by the people who worshipped him just yesterday as a god, left to die as a villain outside the city gates. But Paul's preaching had not been in vain. Many disciples remained faithful. God acknowledged and rewarded his ministry. Verses 21 to 23. And continuing in verse 12, Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. And the priest of Zeus, whose temple was at the entrance to the city, brought oxen and garland to the gates and wanted to offer sacrifice with the crowds. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of it, they tore their garments and rushed out into the crowd, crying out, "Men, why are you doing these things? We also are men of like nature with you, and we bring you good news, that you should turn from these vain things to a living God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. In past generations he allowed all the nations to walk in their own ways, yet he did not leave himself without witness. For he did good by giving you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness." Even with these words, they scarcely restrained the people from offering sacrifice to them. But Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and having persuaded the crowds, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, supposing that he was dead. But when the disciples gathered about him, he rose up and entered the city, and on the next day he went on with Barnabas to Derbe. When they had preached the gospel to that city and had made many disciples, they returned to Lystra and to Iconium and to Antioch, strengthening the souls of the disciples, encouraging them to continue in the faith, and saying that through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. And when they had appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they had believed. Then they passed through Pisidia and came to Pamphylia. And when they had spoken the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia, and from there they sailed to Antioch, where they had been commended to the grace of God for the work that they had fulfilled. And when they arrived and gathered the church together, they declared all that God had done with them, and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And they remained no little time with the disciples. That's the end of this episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the Charles Spurgeon Study Bible, as well as today's cigar. Also, Groundworks Ministries for daily Bible studies and devotionals, Treats and Truth Ministry, where you can get involved in helping to spread the gospel to and be a blessing to the homeless, and the Burning Bush Merchandise Store, where you can pick up some items to help spread the word about the show. If you know anyone who needs to hear this, please let them know about the podcast and help share the message of the Bible, the hope we have in Yeshua Messiah, Jesus Christ. If you'd like to contact me, you can email me at steve@theburningbushpodcast.com, which is linked in the show notes as well. So until next time, have a great day, have a great cigar, and God bless.